little bit, and it's not quite as simple as it seems there. Nonetheless, the fact that the books are at the top of that category is very, very interesting. What it means, obviously, clearly, is that there's a hell of a lot of opportunity in that in this environment for publishers. And, I'd go back on that and say, this is, remember how old this environment is. When the iPhone launched, there wasn't an app store. We didn't have an iPad until earlier on this year. So, it's an incredibly volatile environment. But it shows that, nonetheless, the volume of activity going on here is significant. It's not, there's a definite huge trend, as we all know, in terms of the ebook sales that were mentioned in the slides this morning. There's opportunity there to be had for those who are willing to to start to think how to take on board that opportunity. Let's look at this was last year. What a long time ago. One of the things that surprised analysts was just how Apple suddenly began to, who wanted to read content on a mobile phone, for heaven's sakes. This was before iPad came around. I can talk to that more in a bit, actually, because although that might seem surprising, it's not. This is a phenomenon that's been going on, for some time in other parts of the marketplace. One point I wanted to mention here is, where these statistics come from. This is again, it's getting into the tech a little bit more, but this is about analytics. It's about how you measure, what's going on with apps, because it's not the same as measuring websites. You want to know, very much with your website, well, where are people, where are the entry points? What sites are referring to me? How's the internal search engine being used? So, you're looking a lot at analytics products for that information. There are the similar kinds of products now developing, in this space for apps too. So there are companies like Flurry, which these figures came from, also Distimo, Tapmetrics, and Google themselves as well. No surprise there. Who are delivering now analytics for apps. That let you peek inside user behavior, that let you understand how much people are actually using these apps when they've been downloaded, and getting inside that much the same way as you get inside analytics for conventional websites and web applications. I just wanted to go on to that iPad question just very briefly. So one of the things that was mentioned earlier on in the year, Sony had a promotion offer. They were promoting the fact that they had sold 10 million ebooks on their Sony store since it had been open in 2006. 35 million ebooks sold already since this thing launched in April. So there's a huge difference in scale going on here. And this is accelerating the market as all of these new devices come in. They're reinforcing the growth in the marketplace. And one of the other interesting stats there is that now the hardware sales, in terms of just looking at all of the different e-ink devices that are out there, and this device on its own, actually getting pretty close to being the same size. So very, very quick growth happening, and as I say, it's a very, very volatile marketplace. That might have implications for tech decisions that we're making later on down the line. Do we want to get our fingers burnt developing software for one platform which suddenly becomes insignificant overnight? We'll be coming onto that later, because that is clearly an important question. So one of the things, when I was kind of getting the slides together for this talk was, I had to do a bit of market research, and so this was one of the things I thought I'd do some market research with. When we think back to that slide a few slides ago, where we're looking at the different types of application that are in that, just in Apple Store alone. And we say, okay, books, they're up the top of the list. That looks great. Actually, there's opportunity in many different areas of those categories for publishers. It's not just the kind of book category that has to be interesting. And that's again, going back to some of the great comments this morning. It's about, this is how technology actually enables new forms. So we're not just talking about the book as a static model, as a static piece of content. We're enabling new forms to appear through technology. So, and again, this is about the big picture thing, being in the business rather of communication as a whole, rather than in the business of shipping physical product, books. We've got to think outside of that. And so, again, I thought this was a great example. That what I downloaded was this app. For those from the UK, you probably know who the Campaign for Real Ale are, but it doesn't matter. They're I think they have their own obsessions with making and comparing lots and lots of notes about different kinds of beer. But they're a force actually, and you know, they've got this guide, which I find very useful, shows me where all of their rated pubs are nearby, gives me the reviews, let me know what kinds of beer they're selling. It's that same question. You know, this was published in print. I had it in my car. You know, it would sit with me on, you know, when I'm driving around the country, and I'm finding out. When I'm stopping for lunch, somewhere interesting to go. This is so much easier to use. This is, you know, this is clearly the answer. Now, not every book, not every publication fits into this kind of model, but nonetheless, this is a great example of where you're thinking it through a completely new form from something which is essentially actually the same set of data. So another thing I like about this, which is important thinking, you know, from the sort of business side of things. This is sold on a subscription model. So what we're seeing here is that, you know, this was an annual book in the past. You know, every year a new edition. This is now sold on a subscription model. So I get 12 months of access. It's still sold. It still seems familiar actually in terms of how it's sold. But there's some really important implications for how that rolls on through the whole production process and how you and the kind of vision of the product itself. You know, it's a subscription model, 12-month subscription, and then I get to renew. There is no edition here. This isn't the 2010 edition or the 2011 edition. You know, the content potentially, and I don't know how they're producing the content here, but what's happening here is the content can be updated on a rolling basis. That means you don't need to be having a separate edition all of the time. Now, this, of course, you know, if we take this into the kind of sphere of reference publishing, this probably gives, you know, any librarians in the room kind of palpitations, because the idea that you might not actually have a fixed version, you know, that you could go back to at any point in time is quite a challenging one. But, you know, it comes through, again, to something I read, you know, kind of with a bit of amusement, actually, you know, a couple of weeks ago. OUP, you know, saying how they would probably never print the Oxford English Dictionary ever again. You know, and people sort of, you know, kind of tweeting and so on about the consequences of what that might be. You know, I wonder, you know, why you know, in a way, this kind of model challenges the whole idea that you need to spend years and years and years on your next edition, finally pushing out this huge mammoth thing, only then to sort of, you know, down staff and then wait 5 years and then start to review it all again. This is continuous production, and this you know, so again, it not only does it challenge the idea that you're selling separate editions each year, but it also challenges the production environment as well. So the fact that we create this new form, you know, has this rippling on effect. You know, going back to my question about app stores, it's incredibly easy to buy this, of course. You know, I just press the button and my credit card is debited with the amount. You know, that's fantastic, you know, and it sort of represents in a way that kind of holy grail that we've, you know, all been talking about for a number of years, which is content in context. It's like, it's giving me the content I want in the context that I need it, you know, be it in, you know, when I'm traveling across the country. Unfortunately, it doesn't cover Europe, so there's a market opportunity there, clearly. You know, if I'm going to complete my review of this application, I think that the search actually stinks a little bit in this. It's incredibly slow. The search isn't too great. So if you know, it's great, but the search, they should have gone to people that knew how to do fast search. So we've looked at the market side of things. You know, what I want to do now is go on, look at some of the technology and the technology choices that are in that. Platforms. Yeah, we've been talking a little bit about platforms and, you know, how the iOS is the sort of fastest growing. I actually wanted to talk about the Android platform a little bit because, you know, this is, you know, if we look at that Apple's environment, they've had now 9 different devices, but there are basically only 2 major families of devices. The kind of phone devices, and there's the iPad. And the reason I'm separating it out into families is because this makes a big difference from a software developer's point of view. You've either got to build something for that size screen or for that size screen. Really, when you're developing the software, there's not a lot else to take into account. So from a techie's point of view, there's only 2 different things to think about there. It's still 2, but it's not a great deal, and actually there's a huge amount in common between them. When you look at the Android picture, there are, I think 72 different Android handsets from 22 different manufacturers. It's a much more fragmented picture. There are different